I'm Ric Edelman, and this is The Truth About Money. On today's show, how much money do you have in credit card debt?
Right now about $83,000.
If you apply to several colleges and get in, you get 30% more scholarships.
Right here, right now, stay with us for The Truth About Money. Do you have credit cards? Do you know what the balance is that you owe? Do you know the interest rate that they charge? Do you even know how many credit cards you have? There are an awful lot of people who have no clue to the above, so let's see what some folks told us when we went out onto the street.
Well, that's a good question. I like that question.
13.25% APR, I believe, and the other one is 12.99%.
Zero. I'm a stickler on that.
$13,000 on one, and then $7,500 on the other.
My boyfriend has a credit card. I have other friends that have credit cards. They're into bad debt and everything, so really don't want to get into that situation.
Somebody I know took it from me, and they overspent on it, and I didn't know until it already was in the collection, so that kind of brought my credit down.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? One of the most fundamental elements of personal finance, and a lot of folks are clueless about them. The truth is that when it comes to credit cards, I love them. Credit cards are a wonderful financial planning tool if you use them the right way. The right way means using credit cards and paying them off in full every month. And that means charging only what you can afford, and it means never carrying a credit card balance from one month to the next. Have you ever asked yourself, how did I get all this debt in the first place? Well, there are only two excuses I'll accept if you're in credit card debt. One is medical bills that are beyond your control, and the other is a long-term sustained job layoff due to a weak economy. But other than that, if you owe money to credit cards, then you've likely ignored one of the most basic principles of financial planning. You have failed to keep your expenses low. But how did you get into this situation? Well, here's one common way: using credit cards to buy big-ticket items like furniture, TVs, and vacations. And when the bill shows up, you don't have the cash to pay for it. So you pay the minimum, and the balance quickly adds up. All those buy now, pay later deals, well, they make it easy to fall into this trap. So here's how to avoid the problem. Pay cash for everything, except maybe a house and a car. Pay cash for pretty much everything else. And that means if you can't pay cash, you can't buy it, period. Now, what if you're already in credit card debt? Well, first of all, stop adding to the debt. Next, use my 5-step plan to pay off your current credit card debt. Here's how. First, make a list of all your credit cards. Second, write down how much you owe to each one. Third, write down the interest rate that you're paying to each one. Now here's step 4. Every month, make the minimum payment to every card. And last step, send every amount of extra cash you've got to the one card that's charging you the highest interest rate. That's it. When you pay off that first card, you simply move on to the card with the next highest rate. And if you've got any money in bank accounts or mutual funds, liquidate those assets to pay off your credit cards quicker. Don't use home equity. Don't withdraw money from your IRAs, and never borrow from your 401k at work. Oh, and also stay away from outfits that promise to get rid of your credit card debt for you. They're almost always scams. It took you some time to get into credit card debt, and it'll take you some time to get out. But soon enough, you'll be debt-free. And if you want more information on exactly how you can master your credit card debt, go to our website, thetruthaboutmoneytv.com. We have tremendous amount of information there to help you get out of credit card debt. You've got questions, and I love providing the answers. Here are some outtakes from a recent seminar I presented with Q&A with the audience.
Hi, Rick. As part of my compensation, I've received stock options from my company. What factors should I use to decide when to sell them, when to exercise the stock options?
You should sell the stock as soon as your boss allows you to. And the reason that we encourage you to do that is because we have seen the other extreme far too often, where people have been awarded stock options only to discover that by the time they sold them, the the options were worthless. They were what's called being underwater in value. So we would encourage you, simply from a diversification perspective, as soon as you have the ability to sell, sell. Sometimes people find that very difficult to do because they work for the company, they are a big fan of the company, there might be politics involved in the company. If they start selling the options, the boss might wonder, how loyal are you to the company, and so on. We would argue, therefore, from a financial planning perspective, don't have more than 15% of your investable assets in company stock, either through stock directly or through stock options. So if the amount of stock you're holding gets beyond that number of 15%, it's time to start divesting yourself. Keep one important point in mind. Professional investors, like the folks who run mutual funds or endowments and foundations, institutional money, they will never place more than 3% of assets in a single stock. I'm allowing you to go up to 15% only because you work there. But I'd really rather you didn't, because it's simply not prudent. The worst thing in the world is when someone has a lot of money in company stock and then something goes wrong in the company. Not only does the stock fall in value, maybe to become worthless, but you also lose your job. And we have seen many, many examples of that over the last several years. Go back 10, 15 years. Remember Enron and WorldCom? More recently, General Motors, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, AIG, Merrill Lynch, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, the list goes on of companies that had issued lots of stocks and stock options to their senior executives, only to later discover the stocks were worthless and everybody was out of work. So diversification says, sell it as soon as you can.
Thank you.
Hi, Rick. I've been listening to you for a long time, but I find myself in a strange circumstance. I'm ready to retire, having to take minimum retirement deduction out of an IRA, still working for the feds, and I'm in debt considerably. So I wanted to visit with you about borrowing from my TSP and repaying it. So I would like your advice on that.
How much money do you have in credit card debt?
Right now, about $83,000.
And how many years do you plan to continue working?
I'd like to retire this week, but at least a year.
Okay. How much are you going to receive from your federal pension?
I don't know at the moment. It's $3,000 a month. I've got Social Security and one IRA paying.
How much is the IRA?
Close to 300,000.
Okay. And how much money do you spend on a monthly basis?
About 8,000.
About $8,000 a month.
Yeah, with these credit card bills.
Ignoring the credit card debt, just forgetting about the debt, how much do you spend on your lifestyle?
Maybe $1,000.
Okay.
At most.
And what was the cause of the credit card debt? Are you adding to the debts at this point?
No,
Okay.
It was a family situation.
Okay, so it was a one-time scenario that is now behind you. It's a very, very common scenario, and I want to reassure you, your situation isn't nearly as difficult as it at first appears.
Good.
A lot of folks get very, very intimidated, and rightfully so, when they have massive amounts of credit card and other personal debt, in your case over $80,000. And it can be very, very demoralizing when you're looking at monthly payments of $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 in order to deal with this. You've got a couple of things going for you in your case. You've got very low lifestyle expenses. $1,000 a month is all you're spending. Plus, you have substantial assets, $300,000 in IRAs. Plus, you have a federal pension and Social Security from prior employment as well. As a result of all this, I think you can discover that managing your credit card bills can be accomplished. What you need to do is meet with a financial advisor who can basically put you on a lifestyle plan, basically taking full advantage of the resources that you have to maximize the income so that you can afford the debt payments. I would suspect, with that level of debt load, that you're paying some pretty high rates to some of your credit cards.
Right. That was what happened last year. I was doing well until last year. Some of the credit cards went from 4% APR to 26% APR.
And that's
that
the
was
real
response to the government changes in credit card policies.
When they passed the financial reform law,
Right.
the credit card industry responded by increasing their rates and their fees to preserve their profitability, and you're a poster child for
Yes.
the law of unintended consequences. I don't think any member of Congress would have wanted to see that happen in your case. So what we need to do is simultaneously evaluate, does it make sense to use some of those resources to pay off some of those credit card bills, or can we somehow do debt consolidation, debt negotiation to negotiate lower interest rates? Because the credit card companies are assessing their rates based on their expectation of the likelihood of default. So if we can demonstrate to them effectively that you are not a default risk and therefore should be entitled to a lower level of interest rate, we can dramatically reduce that $6,000 or $7,000 per month that you're currently spending in credit card bills. So you're a wonderful candidate for meeting with a financial advisor who can work through all this with you. Based on the sheer numbers that you've given me right here, your situation is not nearly as dire as it at first appears. So I would encourage you to meet with a financial advisor who can help you go into the numbers in greater detail and work out a strategy for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. How much do you really know about personal finance? Here's our quiz of the day for the truth about money.
An optimal portfolio makes the most money, takes the least risk, incurs the lowest cost, tries to blend high returns with low risk.
I know this is television, but one thing is sure, I have a face for radio. I can prove it to you too. Let's go to my radio show right now. Hey, Raya, welcome to the Ric Edelman Show. How are you?
Good, Rick. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, my question to you is, I need to relocate to India for a couple of years, and I currently own a townhouse, and it is worth $320,000 when I bought it.
Okay.
Right now, it is down 25%.
Okay.
And if I need to sell, I have to put in like $40,000 to get it.
Well, Raya, let me ask you this. Do you have a mortgage on this house?
Yes, I do.
And what's the mortgage balance?
$260,000.
$260,000. So you paid $320 for it, and you said that it has fallen about $60,000 in value?
Yes.
So it was worth $320, now it's worth about $260, and that's about what the mortgage is?
Yes.
But you don't think it's sellable in its current condition?
No, it is not.
You'd have to put in $40,000 in order to sell it?
Yes, including agent costs and all that.
Right, including the real estate commissions and so on. It's a conundrum. When you come back from India in a couple of years, is it your expectation that you'll move back to the same area that you currently live in?
Yeah, I mean, I could stay in India forever.
Rayo, my advice would be to sell the property. Hold your nose, close your eyes, write that check, and move on. It is a judgment call, admittedly. It might not be the most effective financial advice long term, but I think given what we know, it's probably the least evil piece of advice. Anderson, what's your view?
Well, my view is the same. Interestingly enough, my sister and her husband recently went through a very similar situation. I gave them the exact same advice. Take the first offer you get out of it. You want to move on with your life. You do not want to be tied down to a property that was never designed to be a rental to begin with.
The problem now becomes one of emotionalism, because to sell that property for a $40,000 loss means I'm a failure. I have made a bad decision. I've cost myself and my family $40,000. That $40,000 could wipe out much of the rest of my savings. How do I reconcile that fact? And might I want to avoid selling simply so I don't have to admit that I've lost $40,000?
No, the answer is resist that temptation. There's no failure here. There's probably a good chance. Remember that if this wasn't his first property, he might have made a whole bunch of money when he moved into the place to start with. And I think you don't let it emotionally, affect how you feel about yourself. I think he made the right decision at the right time, and the market simply moved in the wrong way.
And if it doesn't work out for him in the future, he can call on the radio show and say we gave him lousy advice. I'm willing to own that. I'll take that. So there you go, Rayo. We hope you enjoy your trip to India and the burgeoning economy there, and hope you'll be close with family and friends and enjoy your working life there. And we do wish you the best, and hope you do come back to the United States, if only to visit in the future.
An optimal portfolio tries to blend high returns with low risk.
Hi, Rick. My name is John Mitchell. I'm from Falls Church, Virginia, and I just turned 70 this August. And my wife is much younger than me. She doesn't turn 70 until December. But we will both turn 70 and a half in 2011. I'm confused, but I'm facing it right now. I'm confused about the mandatory distribution from our IRAs. When do we have to take it? I do not want to get caught having to take 2 distributions in 1 year.
So you're confused about the RMD rules.
RMD.
RMD stands for Required Minimum Distribution. It is rather astonishing. I mean, we all love to hate the tax code, but nowhere do I find a better example of the absurdity of the tax code than the RMD rules. We all know that you've got to start taking the money out after you reach age 70, right? Wrong. It is not age 70. It is by age
70 and a half.
No, it isn't age 70 and a half. It is by April 1st of the year following the year you turn 70 and a half. Who's the clown who wrote that rule? If you blow it, you not only pay taxes, but you also pay a 50% penalty on the amount you were supposed to have taken but failed to take. The IRS can actually collect about 95% of the value of your IRA if you get the RMD rules wrong. Yeah, pretty annoying. So here's the drill. Starting with April 1 of the year following the year you turn 70 and a half, you have to withdraw the money. But here's the trap. If you do withdraw the money on April 1 following the year, that means you're taking the money that you should have taken the prior year. The IRS says that in the year you do turn 70 and a half, that's when you're supposed to take the money, but you don't have to by that December 31. You can wait until the following April 1. But if you do wait until April 1, you're actually taking the money for last year, which means you still have to take the money for this year, which could cause you to take 2 distributions in a single year. And if you fail to do that, you run into that 50% penalty problem. So the simple advice there would be, take the money in the year you turn 70 and a half. In fact, it's really important that you wait until after your 70 and a half date. Don't take the money in the year you turn 70 and a half. Wait until after that calendar date. And then take the money by December 31, and then do it again sometime in the year after that, and you'll be free and clear of it. Hire a professional tax advisor to do your taxes for you. This way, if there's an error, the tax advisor owns it. Any reputable tax advisor will pay the tax penalty and interest for you if the calculation is in error. So don't try to do it yourself. The fee they'll charge you is nothing compared to the massive fee you could owe if you get the calculation wrong. Thank you very much. I'm happy to welcome to the program Kim Clark, senior writer from U.S. News & World Report. Kim is the driving force behind the magazine's annual Best Colleges issue, and she's become an expert on college financial aid. Kim's won awards for her coverage on college funding. So Kim, I'm so excited to have you here on The Truth About Money.
Well, thanks. Let's get to the truth about money. I'm excited about that.
There is no question that one of the most controversial and challenging issues parents face is paying for college.
Right.
That certainly wasn't the case when you and I went to school, the way it is today.
Right.
Everybody seems to be focused so much on 2 things. How do I get my kid into the college of his choice?
Right.
And second, how do I pay for it?
Right.
So which is the more daunting challenge these days?
Well, what people don't realize is these days, getting in and paying are really connected, because a growing number of colleges are trying to use financial aid to lure the students they want.
Define financial aid. Are you talking about loans or grants? Money you have to pay back or money you don't?
No. Okay, so that's a good point. Financial aid is many things, including student loans and work-study jobs, but I'm talking about grants, college grants. A lot of schools use grants to try to lure the students they want. So people think about, oh, I can only go to this one particular college. In fact, research shows that if you apply to several colleges and get in, you get 30% more scholarships than if you only apply to your dream school.
But how can that be? Do the colleges know that you've applied to other colleges?
Yes.
Is it because you're telling them, or they are doing the research?
Because when you fill out the standard free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, which is what everybody should fill out in January, February, you list the other schools that you're sending the FAFSA to. And the schools get that report, and so they know who their competition is.
Now, the big challenge that parents are facing, and their high school students as well, is picking the school itself. Is best always the same as most expensive?
No. Great point. A lot of people talk about finding the right fit for the student. And some students feel that that means that there's only one school for them. Out of more than 3,000 colleges in the United States, of course there's more than one fit, just like there's more than one pair of clothes that fit you, right? So people shouldn't get fixated on finding the one, since you're not marrying the college, you're just dating them for 4 years, right? So you can search through the thousands of colleges and figure out at least maybe 5 or 10 that you would consider attending, and try to choose a mix of, let's say, low-cost public universities, a couple of private universities.
What about community colleges? Are they viable alternatives these days?
They're great. The average community college course costs a couple $100s. I mean, that varies around the country, but if you can get your Calculus 101 requirement out for a couple $100s instead of a couple $1,000s, it's a great option.
I've often said on my radio show that at many schools, freshman year of college is really nothing more than 13th grade.
Right, and a lot of community colleges are offering honors programs. Like City University of New York has a terrific honors program that includes study abroad. So if you can get into one of these community college honors programs, that's a great deal.
One of the daughters of a really good friend of mine just spent a semester abroad, and her parents got a refund check because the semester abroad was actually cheaper than it was going to school here. Not only got to go to Florence for 4 months, but saved money in the process.
Well, you know, one of the big secrets that people don't realize is even though the dollar is very weak, there are a lot of European countries that still have basically free or very low tuition. So if you're willing to learn a language, German, Finnish, something like that, you can go to one of these really highly rated European universities for a very low cost. Your living costs might be a little higher because of the dollar, but there's nothing wrong with learning a language.
One of the executives in my firm got his master's degree in Poland and got it for virtually free, and that's why he went.
Right. And he learned Polish.
And his degree is extraordinarily valuable.
Right.
What do you see as the best way for parents who are trying to save for college? I mean, clearly if the kid is already 16, 17 years old, not a lot you can do if you haven't started saving yet. But what if that child is a newborn or the grandchild? Many grandparents have the discretionary income. What's the best way for them to start saving for that future college education?
Well, a lot of people like to use 529s. These are the basically tax protected, basically Roth IRAs for college education, and you can use the money tax-free for your education, your children's education, your grandchildren's education, or your first cousin's education. So you can change the beneficiary if your kid doesn't use it or your grandchild doesn't.
And all the money is tax-free if you use it for school.
You contribute it after taxes, so that it's just like a Roth IRA, so that you can take it out and not have to pay double taxation.
Except that there's virtually no limit to the amount of money that you need to, that you're allowed to contribute. A Roth puts a cap on you.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's 150,000. I mean, there's a very high limit. The problem is that not every state gives you a tax break for those contributions. So in some cases you put the money in and it doesn't really give you anything really special, but in most states you do get a tax break, and those are worth a couple $100s per year, so that's a great deal.
Kim, thank you so much.
Thanks
Kim
for
Clark,
having me.
U.S. News and World Report. And for more of our interview with Kim Clark, go to thetruthaboutmoneytv.com and you'll see more of our conversation. Now, before we go, everybody thinks it's a law that New Yorkers, when they turn age 65, must move to Florida. Well, no, that's not a law. In fact, it's pretty rare that most retirees move. Most of them don't. And those who do move tend to stay within 20 miles of their old home. So think long and hard before you buy property in a far-off location. Thinking that you'll want to retire there? Well, warm weather is nice, but being close to family and friends is even nicer. And that's The Truth About Money. I'm Ric Edelman. Thanks for joining us.